If you're walking through a season right now where something has been broken in your life, something has been lost, something actually has been taken away from you, a dramatic shift has happened in your life that you didn't choose, then let me share with you something I want to share with you with sensitivity because of the season of pain that you're in. But I want to communicate it very clearly as well because it could really help you walk through this season of crisis. And here's the thought. This crisis may become the most defining moment, the most defining season in your life. I know for me, I didn't believe this at first. When my late wife, her name was Debbie, we had been married 25 years, she was 47 years of age, was killed in a car accident, everything in my life felt like it had shattered. I felt like I didn't have control over hardly anything. And yet there was one thing I found out I did still have control over. And that one thing really changed everything as I navigated through my season of crisis. And in this video, I would like to share with you what that one thing is, that one question to ask God in the midst of your crisis. This is the question I can guarantee you that will turn suffering into formation, that will help you not only just react to what's happening, but actually to respond. It's also the question that gives you some control back. It gives you some agency back in the middle of your crisis. And it's the question that ultimately, I'm not overspeaking here, could be the thing that changes this season of crisis for you. So let me share with you what that one thing is and what that one question I believe you should ask God in the midst of your crisis. When my late wife was killed in the car accident, I intuitively knew this would be the most life-shaping experience I had ever had. I was 47 years of age, and up to that point, I'd had a pretty charmed life. I'd had very little pain in my life. But I knew in this season I was in that it would shape me in some way. It wasn't a matter of if, it was actually a matter of how. So when this became my story, I really began to pray. Honestly, literally, I began to pray and ask the Lord, Father, would you use this suffering in my life as a tool to shape me more and more into the image of your Son? I now have to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, which I never thought would be my story. But since it now is, when I get on the other side of the valley, whenever I get there, however long it takes me, when I come out on the other side, would you at least allow me to look a bit more like Jesus than when I started in the valley of the shadow of death? So if you're in the midst of a crisis, and I would assume you are, or you know someone in your family or a close friend who is, or you wouldn't be watching this video, you can't just snap your fingers or shake your head and you're fine and you're out of it. You have to go through it, and you can make a decision how you're going to be shaped by it, because I can guarantee you, and you know this, you are going to be shaped by it. So let me give you the one question that I would encourage you to ask God in the midst of your crisis. But before I do that, there are two other things that you have to really embrace. I would say position your heart to prepare you for the question that I'm going to encourage you to ask God. And the first one is, you have to acknowledge and accept this is the season you're in. This is now part of your story. It doesn't have to be what totally identifies you, but it has to be now, this is my story. The loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, the failure of a business, a divorce that I've gone through, mental illness that's hit my life or hit my home, whatever it would be, you have to acknowledge and accept it. Not simply give into it, I don't mean it that way, but position in your heart and in your head, this is now the season I'm in. And this is so important because as long as we stay in denial, we stay stuck. But once we stare it in the face, we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, this is now my story. This is now my journey. It's the first step forward in our process of healing and wholeness. So that's number one. You have to acknowledge it and really have to accept it. And the second thing we have to do, we have to be willing to allow God to shape us in this season of our pain. As long as we are resistant to it, we stay stuck. If we stay resistant to it, we can become bitter, and as you've heard, instead of becoming better. Or we can actually become kind of twisted or deformed in this season instead of allowing God really to transform us more to the person that we want to become and more to the person that he desires for us to become. So we have to have a posture and an open heart to allow God to shape us during this season. Even though God didn't cause this, we got to be clear on this. God didn't say, hey, Ken, I want to teach you some lessons, so I'm going to take your wife away from you. That's not God. But God will use all things in our life, if we'll allow him to shape us more and more into the image of his son. So here's the one question that you should ask God in the midst of your crisis. As I've guided hundreds of people through crisis, here's how I framed this for them. I would encourage you to draw a big circle. Just go ahead on your paper right now or whatever, a big circle. And at the top of the circle, put your name, Ken Roberts. So put your name at the top of the circle. And then at the bottom of the circle, here's the one question to ask. God, what do you want to do in me in the midst of this crisis? God, I'm here. I didn't think I would ever be here. It's now part of my story. Now, what do you want to do in me in the midst of this crisis? Here's why this question I think is so important. Here's why I think it can be a turning point for you in your crisis. Number one, because it's what gives you control back. It gives you agency. That's why I use a circle. Because the only thing you have control over is actually your response to this crisis. You have influence over other people, your children, your parents, your co-workers. You have influence, but you only have agency over yourself. So you're the one that's in the middle of the circle. You've heard it said, it's not necessarily what has happened to you. I don't want to play that down, the tragedy in your life, the trauma that people go through. But it's not simply what has happened to you. It's how you respond to what's happened to you. This question in that circle gives that response back to you. Here's another reason this question to ask God is so important. It actually keeps you from getting stuck. Why? Because now you have some forward direction. You don't know what's going to happen next. You probably shouldn't even be trying to figure it out. But once you ask that question, then you have focus and you have direction in how to move forward, because that's the agency in which you can respond to God. In the middle of my crisis, what do you want to do in my own life? The other reason this is so important is it prepares you for what God has next for you, because it becomes this foundation. God shapes us in our crisis if we'll allow him to, and then he uses how he shaped or reshaped us to prepare us and to move us for what's next. So if you want to move into your next, one of the fastest ways to do that is to work with God and embrace what God is doing in your life and allow him to do that work in your life. It will then prepare you for what he has next for you. And then the last thing I would say why this question is so important, it can become the actual turning point in the midst of your crisis. Because now you're not wandering. You're not just wandering in the wilderness. Now you're not stuck. Now you're not just wallowing in your pain. You have an area to focus on that you can respond to. And by responding to, it becomes the turning point to help you move forward in your valley and move through your crisis and to prepare you for what's next. This one question was the turning point for me. When I began to pray and ask God, what do you want to do in me in the midst of my crisis now that I'm here? Never thought I would be, but I am. What do you want to do in my life? It became the thread, the rope that pulled me through my crisis. It became the larger purpose in my life. On the days that I had tremendous grief and pain and confused and I was paralyzed and I wasn't sure with what was next and I didn't want to get out of bed and I had no idea how this whole thing was going to work out. During all those times, what happened is the higher purpose was back to that one question. God, pull me through this and may the purpose when I come out on the other side, may I look more like your son. He can do the same for you and he will do the same for you. It can be your turning point. So draw the circle, put your name at the top, ask the one question, God, what do you want to do in me in the midst of my crisis? We know one of the big answers is he wants to shape you. He wants to use your suffering to move you more and more into the image of his son. Then you can actually grab onto that, give agency to that, and to move into that. If I can further help you in your crisis, I'd encourage you with two things. The first is watch this next video. It talks about the 4 sources of pain. How does pain come into our life? Once we understand that, that again gives us a little bit of clarity and agency. And then the other thing, if you would, is subscribe to my channel. I help people walk through the caution zone, the crisis zone, and into their convergence zone. That's what this is all about. And I'd love to journey with you. Subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going. If there's any way I can help you, please know I deeply desire to do that. Don't get stuck in your crisis. Let God use it to shape you and ultimately move you into your next season.